Hello everyone, David here. Welcome back to my channel. This video is the next in our series where we're looking at the writings of John Flavel. And we're in Book 1 and Sermon 1. Book 1 is a series of 42 sermons that he preached on what he called the fountain of life, that is, the knowledge of Christ. The knowledge of Christ being a fountain of life to us and in us. And he starts with a subtitle, the excellency of the subject. In other words, the subject of the knowledge of Christ is excellent. It's the most excellent knowledge that we can have. And we're going to begin with reading a verse in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 2, which is in the New Testament, and it was written by the Apostle Paul to the church at Corinth. And this is what he says in chapter 2 verse 2: "For I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." For I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And he prefaces that verse with the verse before it, which reads, "And I, brethren, when I came to you, did not come with excellence of speech or of wisdom, declaring to you the testimony of God." And then he says, "For I determined." So this first verse is like an apology for the plain and ordinary manner of his preaching, which was not, as he said, with excellency of speech or of wisdom, meaning that he studied not to gratify their curiosity with rhetoric or philosophical arguments. No, he gives the reason for his letter: "For I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ." Now, what does this "I determined not to know" actually mean? Let's talk about what it doesn't mean first. It means not that he despised or condemned all other studies and knowledge, but so far only as they stand in competition with or opposition to the study and knowledge of Jesus Christ. And it is, he would say, my stated judgment or my settled judgment, not a hasty, inconsiderate exclusion of other knowledge, but the product and issue of my most serious and exquisite inquiries. And after I have weighed the case properly, turned it around, looked at it, viewed it exactly on every side, balanced all the advantages and disadvantages, pondered all things that are fit to come into consideration about it, that this is the result and final determination that all other knowledge, no matter how profitable, no matter how pleasant whatsoever, it is not worthy to be named in the same way with the knowledge of Jesus Christ. So what he's saying then is, this therefore is my resolve to make the scope and end of my ministry, or the target of my ministry, or the result of my ministry, and that the end justifies the means, that anything else that would obstruct or promote any grand design, let me just read it as he wrote it, and hopefully we can get some some understanding from it. This is what he wrote. This, therefore, I resolve to make the scope and end of my ministry, and the end regulates the mean. Such pedantic toys and airy notions as injudicious ears affect would rather obstruct than promote my grand design among you. Therefore, wholly waiving that way, I applied myself to a plain, popular, unaffected dialect, fitted rather to pierce the heart and convince the conscience than to tickle the fancy. This is the scope of the words in which three things fall under consideration. Now, before we get to those three things, what he's essentially saying is he didn't come with fancy talk or rhetoric. You know, very often when we're listening to somebody, we want to be entertained, we want our ears to be tickled, we want our intellect to be stimulated, that sort of thing. Maybe we want people to make us laugh, that sort of thing. But no, he came with plain and simple speech to make the knowledge of Christ the most important thing, because of these three reasons. Firstly, the subject matter of his doctrine was Jesus Christ. That is, I determined to know nothing. That means to study nothing myself, or to teach nothing to you but Jesus Christ. And Christ shall be the center to which all the lines of my ministry shall be drawn. I have spoken and written of many other subjects in my sermons and epistles. This is what Paul is saying, but it is all reductively, that is, looking back at the preaching and discovery of Jesus Christ. Then he says, of all the subjects in the world, this is the sweetest. If there be anything on this side of heaven worthy of our time and studies, this is it. Meaning that he magnifies his doctrine from the excellency of its subject matter, that is Jesus Christ, making all other doctrines but essentially non-important compared to this. Secondly, what we have here is that special respect or consideration of Christ, which he singled out from all the rest of the excellent truths of Christ, to spend the main strength of his ministry upon, that is, Christ as crucified. Yes, Christ was a healer. Christ was a good man. He was a carpenter. He was a good teacher. He was all of this and more. But this is the magnificence of Paul's knowledge, that Christ was crucified. And that is the most important thing, because he says, for Christ crucified was to the Jews a stumbling block. The Jews were expecting a Messiah, a king, a ruler that would throw out the Romans who were occupying them at the time. And to the Greeks, that is you and I, or Gentiles, it was foolishness. What was all that about? Why did he do that? So what he's saying then is that this is his purpose, that Christ crucified, the knowledge of Christ crucified, is above all things the most important. It is the great emphasis of all good, solid preaching and knowledge that Christ was crucified for us, and the reason why he was crucified for us. And we'll get into that as the video series goes along. But thirdly, the manner in which he preached this is also remarkable, because he not only preached Christ crucified, but he preached him plainly, simply. He preached Christ frequently, and whenever he preached of Christ crucified, he preached him in a crucified state. That is, that Jesus was crucified. Yes, we know that he rose from the dead in the resurrection. And all of his sermons were so full of Christ that his hearers might have thought that he had no other doctrine. So what we're saying then is that all other knowledge, however it might be magnified in the world, that is science, that is this sort of thing. There's all kinds of knowledge that's in the world, science and technology, that competes with the knowledge of Christ. Financial wisdom, financial knowledge, all this sort of thing, technical knowledge. What he's saying, what the Apostle Paul is saying, that all these things should be regarded as dross, froth, rubbish compared with the excellency of the knowledge of Jesus Christ, because in him are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So I think we'll finish this video here. It's going to be a very exciting and interesting topic, the knowledge of the excellency of the knowledge of Christ. For you and for me and for those that are non-believers, let me just say, if you are new here, welcome. My video, my channel is focuses on theology, the character of God, and who Jesus Christ is, what he came to do, and proving that he is who he said he was. Because, as C.S. Lewis said, there are three aspects to Christ. He was either a liar, or he was a lunatic, or he was Lord, and meaning that he is who he said he was. And my channel is about proving that Jesus is who he said he was, or not necessarily proving, but expounding or showing that Jesus actually is who he said he was. I can't prove anything. Only the Holy Spirit can prove that to you if you're not a believer. So my job here is just to speak the good news of Jesus, and John Flavel is going to help us get to know Jesus even better than we did before we did up to now. So I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and to tell all your friends to like and subscribe as well. And let's get to know Jesus better through the writings of John Flavel as he expounds the scriptures to us. See you next time.